This episode has been sponsored in part by our friends at Veeam. Are you tired of juggling the cost of AWS backups and recovery with your SLAs? Quit the circus act and check out Veeam. Their AWS backup and recovery solution is made to save you money, not that that's the primary goal, mind you, while also protecting your data properly. They're letting you protect 10 instances for free with no time limits, so test it out now. You can even find them on the AWS Marketplace at snark.cloud/backitup. Wait, did I just endorse something on the AWS Marketplace? Wonder of wonders, I did. Look, you don't care about backups, you care about restores. And despite the fact that multi-cloud's a dumb strategy, it's also a realistic reality. So make sure that you're backing up data from everywhere with a single unified point of view. Check them out at snark.cloud/backitup. Over the past year, I've been asked a question somewhat frequently, and in a variety of differently articulated forms that all distill down to this. So is ECS in maintenance mode now that Kubernetes won? There's so much wrong with that sentiment that I felt compelled to write about it this week and pick it apart like the remarkable bullshit onion that it is. So has Kubernetes won? That depends. It's won some things. Enterprise mindshare, engineering adoration, several Gartner adulations, and an abdication of responsibility for a whole host of things that are neither here nor there. Yes, it's won a lot of those things. In the AWS universe, there are generally two things people want to achieve. They want to either integrate with an existing Kubernetes environment, or they want to sacrifice operational excellence in service to their own resumes. In the larger sense, if the customer actually wants to derive the benefits of containerization and work with them in an AWS environment, they generally opt for ECS instead. There's a reason that I bought and pointed KubernetesTheEasyWay.com to the ECS marketing pages. But it's possible that I'm entirely mistaken on this, and my customers aren't typical AWS customers. After all, if I'm completely wrong, let's find out before I whack the publish button on this podcast, right? So I reached out to AWS's PR group, whose motto is no comment, and also, oh Christ, it's you again. Some fine folks who understandably wish to speak to me as little as humanly possible. They were quick to furnish a quote from the always engaging Deepak Singh. For those paying attention, this is an AWS PR first for me. Normally they ignore me. I've gotten a quote from him. And he says, Amazon ECS has over 100,000 weekly active customers, says Deepak Singh, VP of Compute Services, AWS. This year, almost half of new containers customers chose ECS running AWS Fargate. We continue to innovate quickly based upon customer needs and requests with significant recent enhancements to scheduling strategy and scaling. We also announced with ECS Anywhere the ability for customers to use ECS to launch and manage containers on any compute infrastructure, including customer-owned hardware. Customers can now have a consistent ECS experience for cluster management, workload scheduling, and monitoring. This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at New Relic. If you're like most environments, you probably have an incredibly complicated architecture, which means that monitoring it is going to take a dozen different tools, and then we get into the advanced stuff. We all have been there and know that pain, or will learn it shortly, and New Relic wants to change that. They've designed everything you need in one platform, with pricing that's simple and straightforward, and that means no more counting hosts. You also can get one user and 100 gigabytes per month, totally free. To learn more, visit newrelic.com. Observability made simple. Okay, reading between the lines, it matches what I see. Customers ask for Kubernetes, but what they want is a way to intelligently orchestrate containers in their environment, both AWS and beyond, without falling off the complexity cliff. I'll further point out that Deepak also oversees EKS, so there's little reason for him to be pushing an ECS-focused narrative if it weren't true. So what about ECS or EKS Anywhere or Anywho? There's a natural question as to whether or not ECS being able to run non-AWS environment. And yes, that does include other cloud providers, but good luck getting an AWS employee to admit that one on the record. It is a potential positioning of the service as a competitor to Kubernetes. For what it's worth, I don't think it is. from an AWS perspective, they really don't care if you run workloads on ECS or EKS or AMI or Lambda functions. They're making money either way. I think that AWS clearly has opinions as to the future of container orchestration, but they're also not a company unwilling to either hedge their bets or be proven wrong. I suspect they'll be watching what customers do to see what the future of ECS/EKS/ running containers looks like, but I sincerely doubt that they're looking to overthrow Kubernetes. Unfortunately. There is a divide between ECS and Kubernetes. Kubernetes is cherished by folks who want to have multiple independent clusters, be freed at least theoretically from a single service provider, and or who want to cosplay as Google SREs. ECS, on the other hand, is embraced by folks for whom decentralization isn't a priority. Getting a containerized application out the door easily trumps resume building, and admittedly don't have a wealth of pre-existing Kubernetes experience themselves. But you don't have to take it from me. There's a line from a blog post that AWS published recently that addresses the ECS versus EKS divide from a customer perspective. Amazon ECS powers a growing number of popular AWS services, including Amazon SageMaker, Amazon Poly, Amazon Lex, and AWS Batch. So in this piece, AWS highlights that ECS itself powers a number of important AWS services under the hood. I have a hard time imagining them migrating those things to EKS, or the AWS service teams themselves accepting a less than capable outcome of if ECS were to be mothballed. Bottom line, ECS isn't going anywhere. Kubernetes most assuredly hasn't won all the marbles just yet, and if you ask me, I don't think it ever will.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.